Hey guys, Spartan here. A fair while ago, you may have seen the video that I posted about me getting absolutely destroyed by Gaunt Chirurgeon, the mini-boss that was added in one of the most recent updates. And, yeah, so that's kind of been eating away at me a little. I keep going back to it and thinking, what exactly did I do wrong in that fight? And, there was a bit of it that was just luck-based, bad luck with Jealous Whisper and getting tokens and having those tokens being stolen. But the real issue of which I believe that fight, and this is a big problem with the game kind of in general, is that I did not have enough mastery. So, let me break down the run because you wouldn't have seen the run since I only posted that highlight and not the full thing. So, previously on that run, I had 4 encounter nodes, basically, in sorts. I had 2 resistance encounters that took place while I was in the Feta before I went to the Sprawl and actually fought the guy. And I also cleaned out the lair in that exact same region. Now, the only time that you are forced to gain mastery in the game, or that is guaranteed, is at the Oblivion's Rampart before the inn. That always gives you 1 mastery point. And you might have guessed that I gained my 1 other mastery point from the lair itself. The fact that I went to 2 combat nodes and cleaned out the lair and only got a total of 1 mastery point from that is just completely unacceptable. Like, how are you supposed to actually increase the power levels of your characters aside from, trinkets, which are also random, if you go to all these encounters to actually get mastery to increase your skills, and you just don't get given any because it's luck-based? That is a real problem I have with this game. And yes, sure, the enemies don't get an incredibly amount of, they don't get a huge power boost going from Region 1 to 2, since Ordainment is only at like 40% or something like that. On average, you are facing less than 2 Ordained enemies for every fight, and you can kind of just kill the weak ones first or focus the powerful ones so that you still are facing not too much of a terribly hard fight. The worst possible outcome, however, that could be the thing that ends your run, is if you encounter a mini-boss and they roll Ordainment on Region 2. So basically, you go up and you go to, say, the Chirurgeon's Table, which is what I do. And you need to think about this now because of how Ordainment works. You think, if I roll that this mini-boss is ordained, will I lose my run instantly? And basically, the thought process behind that is, am I unlucky enough for that to be a 40% thing that happens, that I just cannot go to this node? No, that's not fun. That's not, like, a good strategic payoff. Like, if a node is completely unviable, if you get unlucky, and you be like, oh, luck-based if I can actually do this or not, no, that's not good game design. And sure, there's not many enemies that can even have this happen, that this is a major issue since bosses can't get ordained, so it's only mini-bosses. Before the patch that put Gaunt Chirurgeon in the game, there was only 2 enemies that this could even happen to. That's the Shambler, which vast majority of the time is completely optional unless you have like a quirk or something that forces you to fight it with a hero, and that's also kind of just bad luck in general. And the other one is Death, which Death kind of has an actually bad matchup against the Flagellant in general, because Flagellant is really good, and etc, etc. That's just how Death is designed. Death always was the most dangerous enemy to face in Act 2 if you're unlucky, just because if Death does roll Ordainment in Act 2, where the average enemy is not ordained, then you're just kind of screwed because you haven't gone through enough regions to master up enough skills or things like that, or gain enough good trinkets that you can actually take down that boss reliably. But now with this update, or the relatively new one, it's still a few months old, I'd say, there is 2 mini-bosses that are added to the game that can just screw you over if you roll Ordainment against them very early. Like, Collector can show up in Region 2 if you've killed the lair boss on the first, like, combat node, no, not the combat node, road battle. That's just if you're unlucky. Now, sure, Collector is a bit of an odd balancing thing, because it summons, like, little mobs that fight for it, usually, and those each individually roll Ordainment every time they are summoned, so on average, yeah, they're not going to be ordained, except sometimes you can roll an Ordained Highwayman, but, you know, they're little mobs that you can just kill off over time very easily, and don't play too much of a, you know, major difference if they get ordained or not, because you can just kill them over and over again. The big issue is if the big ones get ordained, and you have to deal with that 40% increased HP when you haven't had the, you know, the mastery to build up your basic combat skills to actually deal significant amounts of damage to them. Like, some of these mini-bosses can get over like 150 HP if you are unlucky. Having 150 HP enemies that are ordained on Region 2 is just not fair. So what would I do to fix this? Now, the more complex way that I would situate this is... I don't even know if this is possible with the way the game is coded, but have Ordainment be represented as in a balancing factor against the mastery that you do have, where if you have lower mastery, if you've somehow managed to gain not much of it, then there is a less likely chance that enemies are going to be ordained. Now, I don't know if that's even possible, as I said, but that would be the more elegant solution. But the simpler solution is to just make it so that mini-bosses cannot get ordained outside of Region 3. By Region 3, you should be strong enough to take down ordained mini-bosses. Like, you would have had... I don't know, you would have had at least maybe 12 or so mastery gained throughout the entire run if you're actively going to get some, considering that Region 2 is longer, so... Yep, that would be a decent way to just handle that, because as it is, Region 2 is currently the consistently hardest region if you are going and getting mini-bosses. But yeah. That's kind of all I have to say. Thanks for watching, I guess. Blah 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 blah. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.